I'm just reaching out into the weekend schedule.
Okay. Amy, I would like to welcome you to Fireside Chat with Debbie Marks. In the top corner there, you'll see Kathy Benner, who is my co-host, and you know Sally Sutter. Well, we do this meetup once a month on the second Friday at 1 o'clock. And what I do is I interview anyone who would like to get their name out there, let everybody know what you're doing. And last month I was being interviewed, and I mentioned your name and a few things that I did with you. And so they go, well, we need to interview Amy. And I go, yes, that's perfect. So, Amy, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
What I'm going to do now is give everybody a little brief intro into you. Sure. And then I did send you a questionnaire just so you could kind of get a feel for the questions I'm going to ask you. But Amy lived in Williamsport, Ohio, and she attended Westfall High School. I'm not even sure I know where Williamsport is, but that's okay.
Circleville.
I do.
What was that?
I do.
Oh, Circleville. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. She then attended and studied at OSU in Columbus, Ohio. Amy Beam is a mom. She's a grandma, and she's married to Rick Beam and lives in Lancaster, Ohio. Amy was the former care manager at Home Helpers Home Care. During this time, she studied to become a dementia and related disease educator at the National Certification Board for Alzheimer's and Aging Care. Her current position now is Director of Sales and Marketing at Friendly Care, and your office is in Pickerington, but the main office is in Columbus, correct?
Reynoldsburg.
Yes. Reynoldsburg, okay.
Yes.
And I just want to mention that she is also a mom to this most beautiful little named Serenity. So welcome, Amy, to our interview today. And
thank you.
So the first question I'm going to ask is, I don't remember a lot of your background, but how and when did your story begin?
Well, July 5th, 1972. Do you want to go that far back?
Whatever you want to do.
So, are you talking about dementia?
Well, yeah,
I had I was a foster child, and so I was in and out of the foster system. I had several homes, and then unfortunately found myself without a home for some period of time. And then I met a wonderful my dad. I met my dad, and not my biological dad, but my soon-to-be dad. And he took me in, and his wife, who doesn't care for me, but I had my dad, and we did everything together, and he changed my whole path of life. He told me, we sat down for dinner for the first time I'd ever sat down at a family table, and he said, asked me what I wanted to be, and I told him I wanted to be a normal teenage girl. I wanted to be a cheerleader, and I wanted to do all that stuff, and he said the only person that could stop me was me. So I did it.
Good point.
I was a cheerleader at Westfall. I ran track. I was in the swing choir. I play the oboe. And yeah, went off to college, and I actually got a master's degree in landscape architecture and design. I was doing.
That's a big difference.
It's a big difference. My dad, I would get phone calls. I moved them over to the golf course. They lived in a little home in Atlanta, Ohio, and I moved them to the golf course. And they had a HOA there.
Okay. That's what the.
And I would get phone calls about things that my father was doing, awkward things.
Okay.
The last one was that he was in the middle of the golf course there at Deer Creek. The golf course was new at that point. And he was in his boxer shorts with his boots on and a broomstick trying to herd cattle, people on golf carts. And so I love golf, and I went down and I wanted to remind my dad of my name and that people do know who I am, and that he embarrassed me and that we couldn't have this anymore. His behavior. At this point, not only did I not know anything about dementia, we really called it old timers disease or just senility. Not very many people actually knew what dementia was. And I pretty much tortured him for 3 years, always making sure I corrected every wrong, always making sure I let him know when I was disappointed, letting him know what a burden he was. It was from.
I'm sorry.
Anyways, fast
We can
forward.
move on.
He gave up everything. He was 57 years old when he decided to adopt a 13-year-old girl from the other side of the railroad tracks, and he never gave up on me no matter what. And so he laid in a coma, and let me back up a little bit.
Awesome.
Am I allowed to say the name of the hospital?
Sure.
No. Burger Hospital. I took him to Burger Hospital for an MRI, and they dropped him and broke his neck. And then he ended up life flighted to Riverside, and the neurosurgeon came out and told me that he would not live through the surgery. So I put him in a nursing home in Circleville, Ohio, which I will not say the name of because I work and I help train those people. So, and things seemed to go really well. I would call them when I got off of work every week, and they would have him all cleaned up and shaved, and everything looked great. And then I happened to be down in Deer Creek golfing for a charity, and I thought, well, you know what? While I'm down here, I'm just going to swing by and surprise Daddy. Things weren't so good when I got there, and they didn't know I was coming. So I politely, or not so politely, gave them about 25 minutes to have things prepared for me to take him home. I called my boss and quit my job. And I went home, took my daddy home, and I took care of him the best that I possibly could. And he slipped into a coma. This is where my life changed. Hospice was coming in, and I was talking with the hospice nurse a lot because he was sleeping a lot. And matter of fact, he hadn't spoken in approximately a week.
I wouldn't make a big deal for it.
And I had my feet propped up on his bed. The only time I ever left his bedside was to shower. And Father Paul came in from the Catholic Church, and he said, you need to tell your dad to go, that it's okay to go. And we went out on the porch and we rehearsed it. And I walked in and I sat down beside of him, and I grabbed a hold of his shirt and I said, don't you go nowhere.
They don't want this person to be back. They don't want to go back to this person.
And he woke up and he said, I'm so thirsty, Joe. He called me Joe. He said, I'm so thirsty, Joe. I'm parched. I want a soda. So I looked around because I thought I was hearing things, and I wasn't. He woke up, and I got him a soda, and he drank a whole 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. And then I snipped off the end of a cigar, let him have a cigar, and I gave him a shot of Jim Beam because that's what he wanted. And then he told me how spoiled I was and how hard-headed I was and how proud he was of me, and that I changed his life and he loved me very much. And I kissed him and told him it was okay to go, and he passed away. And that was on Father's Day, he passed away. So I decided I was going to spend the rest of my life educating people about dementia so that nobody had to think about the regret or mistreat. There's no comprehensive training programs for dementia in the state of Ohio, in several states, but specifically in the state of Ohio, no comprehensive training programs. If Debbie wanted to hang a shingle outside of her house for private pay and say, I'm going to care for dementia patients in my home, she could. No license is needed, no training is needed, no nothing is needed in the state of Ohio for dementia care. If it's private pay, as long as the state's not involved. So then I set out and I went back to school. And gosh, Debbie, I think this is 2021. 7 years I've been doing it.
2015, I'd say.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah, that's when I met you.
I got my certification as an educator in 2017, got my practitioners in dementia and related diseases.
Well, I think this is a perfect place to segue into, can you briefly describe the longest day? I had never heard of it. And when I met you, that's when I learned about this and I experienced it. But can you explain it to those that are listening to the recording?
Sure. The longest day is also the summer solstice, June 21st typically, and that's where we slip over the 12 hours of daylight. So there in the springtime we get 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of dark. The longest day is when we slip over that 12 hours, and we have the longest day June 21st. Another reason why it's called the longest day and why we make such a big deal out of it with dementia care and senior care is that when we see changes like that, as funny as it sounds, the full moon, the longest day, it also becomes a very difficult day for people with dementia. Every single day with somebody that has any form of dementia is the longest day. So it just represents that, and we chose the summer solstice because that's our longest day.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
How did you become known as the dementia whisperer? Here in Ohio.
Your dementia whisperer.
I always say that.
Actually, it wasn't something that I chose. I liked my name Amy. And people started calling on me, to help them. And I did. And then I would start going into facilities. I got very close with Dr. Brian Varney. And then I started getting phone calls from like Violet Township Fire Department had heard about me, and they would call when they had a combative person. And I have a way with dementia patients, like when they're being very combative or resistant, I know how to tap into them and talk with them, calm things down, and get them to do things that they need to have done to remain safe. And so they deemed me your dementia whisperer.
Well, I got to tell you, it's very impressive. You mentioned about Violet Township and that. I know that when this first started, you had seminars for the first responders. And like you stated, you knew how to handle patients that are living in homes. And so share with us, what information did you give these first responders so they would be able to understand what they were walking into, be able to handle it? And if I remember correctly, didn't you develop a sticker or something that would go on the window or door so the first responders would recognize it?
Yes. So it's very important to remember that there are several stages. There's 7 stages to all dementias. And when a doctor diagnoses a loved one or a family member, they tell you stage 1 through 3, medium, or it's like the beginning stage, moderate stage, severe stage, and there's actually 7 stages. By the time anybody truly gets diagnosed with dementia, they're about 4 and 5. Okay, so that's, to me, that's pretty advanced when you know only 7 stages. At that time, sometimes right about 5, there's certain things that happen to the brain when the brain is shrinking. One of them, though, is delusions. And the first thing I taught the first responders is the difference between a hallucination and a delusion. You'd be surprised who didn't know. Okay. So the difference is a hallucination is they're seeing something. A delusion is they're living it. So if they're in the middle of a delusion, which typically they are, and that's why they're being combative, and 5 men in uniforms walk in with a gurney trying to strap them down, there's going to be a fight. So the first thing I want them to do is go in one person and announce themselves to assess the situation. Speak very calmly. Don't reach out to the person. Let the person put eyes on it. You always want to stay face to face and have direct eye contact. If they're sitting down, you get to their level. You never want to lose eye contact with them. You want to speak in a low voice. A high-pitched voice can send things off, send them spinning in a tailspin. I also let them know that if they're not agreeing with what the patient is saying, they need to just stop and validate whatever the patient's saying, because it's their truth, their head, their brain, and their truth. Just because it's not ours doesn't make it not true for them. I also let them know that they're allowed to say no. When nursing homes call you because they can't get somebody in the shower for 3 days, that's not bad behavior. That is my pet peeve. That's lack of training on the nursing home's part. It is. And
it will be time.
I just let them know how to deal with that. And they utilized me quite often. I did Violet Township, all the fire stations in Lancaster. And then right before COVID, we were working on me doing all the sheriffs and state patrol and police in Fairfield County.
Yeah. Have you been able to pick back up with the sheriff's departments? Yeah. That's a shame. That's a shame. So what did the sticker look like?
So the sticker is, it was puzzle pieces similar to autism, because we are now realizing once people started wrapping their head around the fact that Alzheimer's is not dementia, dementia is caused by Alzheimer's, we realized then that there weren't just, it didn't just affect older people, but children as well, because dementia is actually lack of brain function. So Down syndrome is a dementia you're born with. Autism, a form of dementia. And we did the puzzle pieces, and they were in the shape of a heart, and it said dementia patient inside. I was like, if we can, I would go in, I would get calls and go to people's homes, and I would see oxygen in use. I would see cat inside, dog inside, and I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if firefighters knew that the person inside has dementia and that you needed to enter one person at a time so that you were not causing an issue? And so that's what I came up with.
I think it's perfect.
Right.
Why did you create the support groups for the families and caregivers that are in the area? Because I know Sally and I both have attended many of them. And why did you do this?
I did it because I'm Christian, and I feel like I've been blessed like beyond total measure. And the one thing that prevented me from being able to care for my dad or get the knowledge that I needed was I had to limit how much time I could have the nurses there by what I could afford. So I tried to think of a way that I could reach as many people as possible for free and give back. And so I do support groups because I want to help people learn to care for them. I want them to stay home and out of nursing homes.
Are you going to be able to resume doing support groups soon?
That I had it set up to start in August, and was then the numbers have just gotten too big again, and I'm getting some pushback right now, but that's a different topic. So I am going to put that. It's not are you or if, I am going to do it again. And I actually have a very good friend who's looking on a way to try to get something like this so that I can Zoom to people because I used to talk to people in South, we would set it up on the computer, and I had people from South Korea, I had people from the UK and
Yeah.
stuff, all it mixed in our groups. So yeah, I do want to get that back. Right now in my current job with Friendly Care, I no longer am marketing, obviously. I have too many people very close knit around me for me to be out in the public and bring that home. The Miss Serenity that I just adopted, she was born immune deficient. My husband is fighting cancer, and my mother-in-law is 92. So those people are all in my care, and I need to do my part to keep them well.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of gave us a little bit of a sneak peek what it was like before the pandemic hit. And you were in a good place. I know. So you mentioned, so now that COVID is here, and so is there anything else to share with us on how it's affecting what you're able to accomplish?
Well, financially, it's affected me a lot, because even though I did that for the Communities Free, I had some very good paid speaking events that I was doing. I was also honored enough to have written legislation, and was in the process of having 2 bills passed in the state of Ohio with the help of Senator Lanise and Senator Schaefer. I had a page and a whip, and I didn't even know what that was. For a minute, I was like, oh, I'm not into films like that. But then I was just like, no, it's okay. And that's all halted now. More than how COVID has affected me, let me tell you that these memory care units went on lockdown. We lost so many dementia patients, because just like anything, when you don't use their brain and you don't encourage them to use their brain, it shrinks much faster. And there were not activities, and there was no visiting, and it was devastating. It was devastating. I actually did maintain a relationship with several people on the phone, and people still continue to call me or hit me up on Facebook, and I can do Facebook Live with them and help them through those tough issues with their loved ones. So I have stayed in contact with many.
Oh, that's good, because no matter what avenue we use to communicate, we have to do that. And we don't realize how beneficial it is to them until, later on down the road, when you see that they've maintained the level, they've maintained their ability to have a conversation with you and with their loved ones. So why did you become involved with Friendly Care?
I'm looking down the line to see who works in nursing homes. First of all, because Boris it's a privately owned company. There's no franchise, so this is corporate office. Ding ding. And my true heart of hearts believes that we need to do as much as we can to avoid nursing homes. And we provide home care. And with that, I get to talk with, not only do I get to talk with the family members, but I'm educating caseworkers for the state of Ohio, for Ohio Department of Education. Now, right over the phone, I get to walk these people through this. I believe that they do need to stay home. That has to be our main goal, to keep them out of nursing homes for as long as it can possibly be safe for them. As long as we provide care safely for them, we need to keep them out of nursing homes. And companies like this allow that to happen.
So what's it been like? What have you had to endure with your staff and your clients? I mean, with COVID, you had so many things you had to work around with, not only your staff, but also with your clients. And can you kind of enlighten us a little bit on how that was, or is, I should say?
I was going to say is we're suffering right now more than we have suffered through the whole COVID era. I don't know what we're in right now. At first, our staffing depleted due to everybody just being afraid. And it was a very fluid situation. We didn't have the knowledge that we do now. Not that we have much and not that we know what to believe, but we reached a point, I do believe, early spring, early summer, spring and summer, where we really thought we were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And we kind of felt like things were picking up. And then they started with the paid unemployment, the extra monies, and the stimulus checks and stuff. And tax credit, thanks, Vicki. So that I can play devil's advocate on this because how it affected us was we had some girls that jumped on the bandwagon, and if I can be paid to stay home, I'm going to stay home. On the other hand, Debbie knows me and knows that I will defend everybody. On the other hand, I did a few exit interviews to see what was going on because I've never been so devastated. This is exactly what I've wanted to do with my whole life, is exactly what I'm doing. And the girls informed us that the monies were put in their checking account, and even though they're telling you that it doesn't show, that it doesn't count on them, these were girls that were single moms, and they weren't abusing the system. They did have subsidized rent, but they were working. They did accept food stamps, but they were working. They do have medical care for their children, but they were working. They weren't just sitting at home, they were working. And when this monies went into their account, it showed an overage. So they were given a choice by the state of Ohio. You either continue to work and we take away your food assistance, your medical assistance for your children, and your subsidized rent, or you quit your job and then you can still have your benefits. Mm. Some of our the people that we, our aides, some of our staff, they don't just have 1 or 2 kids. They have 5 and they have 6 kids. They were faced with the decision they needed to make, and we're not recovering well. Not to mention the fact that they pay us on average $17 an hour. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we pay our aides on average $12 an hour. They want the aides paid $15. You guys figure out the profit margin there. McDonald's is going to pay them $15 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wendy's is going to pay them $15 an hour. $12 an hour to care for somebody else and clean houses and change depends and stuff. It doesn't sound as enticing as literally making more at a fast food restaurant than to care for a human being. And that's the state. That's the state of Ohio.
Well, if it's here, then you got to know that it's other places, unfortunately.
Across the United States. So I'm very dear friends with the CEO of the National Board for Alzheimer's and Aging America. And she called me the other day. She lives in Stockdale, Arizona. Not only are they being bombarded by what's going on at the border, so they're having a terrible time down there. Nobody's working. She was like, what's going on in Ohio? And I was like, nobody's working.
Is that Catherine?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I mean, and I can't even imagine what it's like in Arizona for them.
All in the name of COVID.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's get on a lighter note.
Yes, please.
During this year, 2021, someone beautiful came into your life, yours and Rick's.
Mhm.
And you mentioned her name earlier.
Mhm.
And
She's here with me today, actually.
and why did you start Serenity's World?
I started Serenity's World because when Rick and I, first of all, we're middle-aged. I know it's hard to believe, but truly we are. My husband is 60 years old and he's never had a child. He had a vasectomy when he was 18 years old to make sure he never had children, never wanted them. We had the opportunity to have this little girl in our life, Miss Serenity, knowing that she was going to be born with a few complications. And when I told a few friends about it and my work family here, the response that I got from the community, first of all, the response I got from Fairfield County was ridiculous. I'd never seen anything like it. My baby shower was literally a parade. And she's 14 months old, just bought the first box of diapers. Like diapers and wipes more than you could imagine. Everybody was so supportive. And because there was some issues with adoption and she was not born in the safest situation, I was not allowed to post her on social media. So I wanted to make sure that everybody who supported me and Rick, no negative words. Nobody said you're crazy. Nobody said this is insane. Literally 100% support. So I started a private Facebook message called Serenity's World so that everybody could watch her grow. And I don't know how to say it correctly, but from a distance because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do have some unique stuff. Serenity was born with COVID. She was born with a virus in her blood. She was also born with what's called cleft esophagus and addicted to methamphetamine. We're through all of that. We've had some surgeries. We got this all going. The one really cool thing is Serenity's still immune to COVID.
That's awesome.
Yeah, still immune to COVID.
Teresa?
Yeah,
They're going to want her blood.
that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
They did genetic testing, and she is Wallapai.
Give me a call, let you know we still have not found you.
Oh no, you know me. It's spelled with an H, not a W. Hello?
Keep working on this.
So I'm like, she's
It'll be at least a-
halibut. What is that? And they're like, no, Wallapai, Native American. So out of Arizona.
That's an Indian.
Yeah, she's Native American.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I never knew that.
Oh,
She's a sweetie.
Look at that hair.
Teresa, can you hear me?
She was born with more hair than most people have at the age of 15. I was like, oh, my babies were blonde, so they were towheads.
And she still has beautiful black hair.
Long. It's already down to her shoulder blades, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a nap right now, or I'd pop her up there so you guys could see her. But yeah, she's clear down to her shoulder blades.
Yeah, I don't know.
I felt so bad because I would read on Facebook how everybody was having such this, we're so tired of being stuck in the house because, we were doing lockdown and quarantine. And I was like, oh, it was so much fun. This is the greatest.
How do you think all of this has changed you? And maybe it hasn't. I don't know.
Definitely changed me.
Okay.
It's definitely changed me.
I'll have to call your aide.
I used to be a very social person. I was always doing something. I was either doing something in the community, or I was hanging out with friends, or I was going to this meeting or something, and I don't. I just don't.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
And then you can resume
I don't-
on Monday the 11th. Thank you. Have a good day.
I don't want to be sick. I had COVID, and I was sick.
Nasty.
And then I thought that it, at that time it was, well, once you get it, you've got the immunity. Well, I must not have had the immunity because I got it again. And this time we couldn't get me negative. I stayed positive for from October to February. And I'm what they call a long hauler. I still am symptomatic. So
Where do you see your future taking you?
heaven.
I agree. I agree 100%. Well, Amy, not unless you want to add to that, heaven. That's a pretty good place to end up. I got to tell you, I have learned so much new. Some of the things I already knew, but I've learned so much more about you tonight or today. So in closing, for those who are attending today, or they're going to be watching the recording that I'll be sending out, what is your contact information so that they may connect with you?
Okay.
Whatever's safest.
This number.
You do whatever you want to do, even if it's just an email.
I work for Friendly Care, so you can reach me at Friendly Care. My email address is friendlycareamy@gmail.com. You can reach me at 614-300-2882.
Okay. All right. Well, Amy,
I'm always available on Facebook. Well, not always available, but you can reach out to me there.
that's true. Amy, is there anything else you would like to say before we close out today?
No, we're united. We're much stronger united than we are apart. Okay, guys?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Stay safe, but stand
Thank
strong.
you so much.
It's great to see you,
have been
Amy.
You need
We
to
got
see
it.
Serenity, Sally.
Huh?
You need to see Serenity.
Well, I've seen her on
Soul
Facebook.
changer. She's a soul changer.
I bet.
Amazing.
I bet. Thank you, Amy, so much again. We really need to do a lunch in person or a virtual lunch. I don't care.
Lunch in person would be great.
Yes, yes, I agree. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And we will see you later. Thank
Yep,
you.
I'm very honored.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys. Bye,
Amy.
Kathy.